let's get to it now. So let's scroll up and let's actually talk about these changes. So actually, we kind of alluded to Lifeweaver. Again, like I said, next week we'll have a dedicated podcast to Lifeweaver once we've all got access to playing it. But all of us here have had some, flirtations with Lifeweaver, no pun intended. So what do we think, fellas? Anyone have any, like, I know Frito's kind of alluded a lot. Sam, I don't think we've heard too much of your opinions on Lifeweaver. Like, how do you feel about him?
You know, I don't really know. I think so. His heal numbers aren't strong enough to be picked with like a Reinhardt. I don't think. I think Ryan would struggle with him. I think he needs to be playing with a tank that can sustain well, which is why I think there's a chance he replaces Ram or so replaces BAP in Ram Rush. Because again, you just do what you did in season 1 with Kiriko. You play a corner, you poke, and unlike Kiriko, I think Lifeweaver has even more utility than Kiriko to actually bail her teammates out of these situations. I think his teleporter, his jump pads are actually the most interesting and fun mechanic they've added to the support role in a really long time. I'd love to see more abilities like that. I think that was really clever, and I'm glad that they're doing stuff like that instead of MOs, except for the fact the life pool actually is an MO. Damn.
So close.
We were so close, guys. We were so close. Please stop with the MOs before it gets out of hand. I'm telling y'all right now, I just that's all I want to say on it, okay? Life pool is dangerous. In the right setting, it can be very good. But what frustrated me the most about people saying, "Oh, well, people aren't going to troll with life pool." There's a big difference between life pool and any other support ability, okay, or any other ability in the game in general, okay, or a Maywall, anything. This is the first time an ability can forcibly move a teammate that they cannot interact with it on their own in the game's history, and I don't think that's very good for first-person shooter games, in my opinion. Like there's a danger to that. It's whether it's pulling somebody off the map, which is a very extreme scenario, right? People try to compare it to Sim Teleporter. Let's make this crystal clear right now. The life pool ability is not similar to any ability we've ever seen in this game, ever. Okay, it's a dangerous path to go down because it's the first time you can literally control your teammates. That being said, I think it's definitely an interesting ability that is incredibly powerful, right? Like this is it baffles me that people try to say support is not the most powerful role in the game. You have more control over the game than any other role in the game, hands down. Ult, I think it's interesting. I'm unsure as to whether or not. I feel like the only way you beat the ult is like BAP windowing it, right? But if Lifeweaver replaces BAP, then we don't know, right? But I think he only gets played with Ram Rush. I think he's very good into dive, right? Because again, you can like if you're defending against a dive comp, you just set up double flower petals. And I was actually working on a couple of different rollouts. There's tons of different tech that will be from a viewer experience, it's gonna be really fun to watch. Here's where I'll give him credit. I think that it's gonna be I think this will be the most fun support to watch they've ever put in the game, like ever. Like that's how much fun it is. Because think about this, Flatsier on Ryan, right? You're defending Rialto's second. They're trying to come up that abysmal staircase. I'm going to spoil my strat. I don't care, whatever. I have plenty of other stuff cooked up. I'm going to set a pedal pre-fight at the bottom of the staircase on that left flank. My Rhine gets pedaled up, shatters a team as they come up the stairs. If he doesn't get anything, that's fine. I'm pulling you straight back across the map, and you have your whole shield, all your cooldowns, and we have plenty of time to set up for our next anchor. And since I set up my my pedal on the fight before, I'm going to have another one. And you can roof surf as Ryan and an entire rush comp on the top of the roof of Rialto and go over, and you can just drop down and shatter WWE style from a blind side. So like plays like that. You can also go over the first on circuit legally this time, Al, legally. You can't say it's an illegal maneuver because you guys put the jump pads in the game. So I want to see some of that too. Options on circuit. You love to see it. So I think the character's interesting. I was very nervous and scared at first. I think the MO on the shield might need to get changed and have it just be like barrier health so you can pierce it and maybe have some options. But no, I think there are niche situations, especially on the maps that have very difficult rotations for rush comp, where you can just pedal up in the air. That'll be very good. I think he struggles against poke, but is good into dive. And I think that there's definitely a cool place in the game for the character. But I really, I don't know if I like or dislike how the fluidity of switching between his heals and damage is. I'm not sure how to feel about that yet, because I know they've wanted to make it like Mercy, but you will have to think about that. But I think overall it's a very cool design. I think it was executed pretty well. There's just some changes, like minor, like fun. It's not fundamentally flawed. It's just going to need some changes and tweaks to how abilities function.
I didn't play a ton of Lifeweaver. Like I actually didn't play him at all. Like I played in Pugs with him, but I'm not a support player, and everyone seemed to want to play him, so I just like fuck it. I played with you the other night.
Yeah, we played.
Yeah. So like, and for some reason, I was on demon time that night on Hanzo.
You were fragging out. On
Hanzo, I had to go AFK because I felt bad at one point. I spawn killed Karku 3 times in a row, and I was like, I'm fucking up his content. So I went and sat on the second point of Hollywood where the mini is at the choke, the first choke, and I just sat AFK on the boxes and just waited till I capped the points. So I stopped spawn killing him. But actually, I do think Lifeweaver is going to be pretty good. I think the flower is going to be insane. I think that people are talking about the life grip is the scariest part of his kit. I actually think the flower is. And I was talking to Siegel about it, and he was like, he was 100%. He was like, wow, this flower is going to be insane. Like, it's, you know, like a tracer poking you, and whoop, and just go up. We ain't going to get him. Like, it's not possible. Especially if you set it up pre-fight, too. Like, you can get 2 of them. But what I will say, the biggest detriments are, like Sam said, his fluidity between healing and damage. I don't even know why you heal on the character. There's no point. You only get 3% ult charge on a non-tank target. So full ult charge, full 65, you get 3%. You swap to the little needler bullets, 1 clip of hitting people is like 10%. It's like 12%, or is it actually more? It's insane. Like, there's almost, like, for me when I was like working with him, I was like, whoa, why would I even heal with this guy? Like, his damage gives him way better ult charge, and I feel like you just play around Tree of Life. Like, you just farm Tree of Life every fight and then play off of that, and it's insane. I wouldn't even use him for healing half the time. But what I actually think is not talked about enough, and is probably his biggest flaw, is how gigantic his hitbox is.
Yeah.
It's insane. Like, when I talked about spawn killing Karku, it was so easy. You know, nothing against him. Like, I literally started every fight with a shot. Like, it was easy though. Like, even if I didn't hit the headshot, I popped Storm Arrow and just hit him twice, and he just fell over. That was it. Like, you couldn't. He's huge. Like, all the support characters are very small, right? Like, other than maybe Brig and Bap, I would say. Like, even Zen, I guess, is like somewhat. Like, he's got like kind of a big head, but like, yeah, he's just a little ball. But everybody else is pretty like small or skinny. He's just chunky. He's bigger than Mei. Like, he's bigger than all the DPS characters.
He feels bigger than Junker Queen, to be honest. He feels
honestly, might be bigger than Junker Queen. Yeah. He's huge. So honestly, like,
don't give him 250 health. Don't take it like that before anybody thinks.
Good call. Good call. Getting ahead of the curve. I respect it.
I think you should have armor health, Sam.
All right. So yeah, basically, I think that's probably going to be his biggest detriment. Is people, you're right, poking him out, especially those sniper comps, because like, he's just gonna be so easy to hit. So I think it's gonna be really infuriating to play against the flowers all the time, because I saw SK and Eva, when they in the playtest, they would like put it in front of the doorways and then step on it walking out, and then boom, there's a 400 HP barrier like Mei wall you can't walk through. You have to break it, and you could put it on like the stairs sometimes, and they couldn't walk up the stairs because it jets out of it, so like you're trying to go up it and you couldn't like walk over it, you know what I mean? Like, God, that's gonna be annoying. Like, the barrier potential of the flower is gonna be very frustrating, and probably a lot of its power. And also, yeah, I think that the Rhine stuff is definitely possible. I can definitely see the ranked play style being, you set up as Rhine in the back line and go full LH Cloudy and just go pinning in and just try to go for a free pick. And if you hit the wall and you missed, they just like yoink you back out and you're free. But in like more coordinated or like high rank, I think Ram, you just all in with him. And then like, if you get in trouble, you just yoink him back over around the corner, and you're like, you know, he pops his shield up and you sit there and you reset really fast, and you probably got a pick on the way out. So I don't know. I think it could be insane. Huh?
Tree of Life with Ram is going to
be tree of Life. Yeah, apparently. Well, also, if you could just catch them in the tree, like,
yeah,
I guess, you know, if they're next to a corner, just trap them in the tree. What's he gonna do? Like, he's just gonna sit there, be like the guy from God of War, live in the tree.
And I guess a lot of these might be iterated upon. Like, they may have to figure out the clunkiness of like, well, you know, when you get put in the tree, or like what blocks you wear.
Yeah, so. I'm kind of memeing, but.
Maybe just push you out too, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I can't put a turret in the tree. What's the deal with that? Why is that not in Overwatch 2? Like, come on.
So Frida, what was your, you know, you've already given a lot of interesting ideas about, you kind of feel like Lifeweaver will slot himself into the meta, kind of just control from the high ground. But yeah, any other thoughts you want to add on the character?
Oh yeah, plenty. Yeah, I think he changes the game in a way that's just so hard to understand until we're all in the thick of it, and it's just hard to imagine a world where you get the positioning that he guarantees repeatedly in over the course of like multiple repositions in the game. It's hard for me to quantify like what is the value for that, because on one hand you look at his heal and you're like, oh wow, this may be the worst heal in the game, pretty much in some ways. But on the other hand, how do you put a number value on teammate out of position, now in perfect positioning? And not only that, on the way there is immune, completely invulnerable. That the grip is the real ability that I think matters the most, because other supports have like escapability options, like Flower Petal. For him to escape, or as a combo piece, it's like, okay, other supports have things that I feel are similar in principle. Like, you know, if you Immortality Field, your Cassidy's High Noon on a corner, it's like, okay, you set that up. It's not like totally different, other than the fact that you get a new angle. Yes, that's different, but the idea of comboing with a ability like that still exists. The thing that's transformative, I think, is maintaining high ground. Now, I've yet to release my review of the character, so some of this will be a repeat of that, but this is everything I want out of a support character, fundamentally, mechanics-wise, personally. I absolutely love characters like this. I've been begging for the devs to put MOBA-style abilities not in the hands of DPS characters, but instead in the hands of the support class. And now we see, okay, his stats are low, and he's really easy to hit, but his potential's super high. And so therefore, as a game sense player, there's a lot for you to do. And I actually think, surprisingly enough, I think he's going to be good at every level of play potentially, because, and I want to transition a little bit here, in this podcast specifically, in general sometimes, but in this one, we've done a pretty poor job talking about like the 99%. Like I enjoy listening to you guys go off on a high level meta and all this, and in top 500 where Ryan is bad, meanwhile everywhere else Ryan's amazing, and the different like comps that exist. I love watching the pro play. I do often, and I try to learn from that to teach everybody else as much as I can, but like, there's a fundamental aspect of Overwatch 2 that has been problematic in that a lot of average level support players, and I'm going to say just everyone, at 99%, okay, everyone, there's I need to pick Moira just because my team isn't syncing up or taking space appropriately or ever like flowing through the map, marking flanks, etc. There's this whole like inability to ever even set up as a lot of characters, which is one of the most frustrating aspects of playing support in Overwatch 2, whereas in Overwatch 1, there's a lot more like extra beef in front of you to get where you need to be. They're improving that with the stranded spawn system, where you get to warp to the new spawn. That's going to be another low-key buff to a lot of slow characters like Ana and Zen. But Lifeweaver as a concept solves a lot of those problems, where he can survive himself, and he also can say, all right, teammate that's stranded out somewhere because the dive happened and the positioning got repositioned. There's something like, I can't remember, hold on, I bet Sam remembers this. There's something I said like many podcasts ago where there's a character that like had extreme late fight value. I can't remember. I wish I had this example. I'm like getting 10% of it.
I remember talking
He
about
talks
this
about
once,
map and break, like when they did so much that like their cooldowns like were just back up faster or something. Is that what you mean?
No, I remember he was talking about like, well, if you have these two characters in the end of a fight and it's like Straggle and I think it's like Sigma and maybe Bap or something, where it's like you leave these two guys at the point, they'll still keep themselves alive forever, unlike a Reinhardt and someone else who just
who have finite resources. Yeah, go ahead, Frida. I got you.
Right. So Overwatch 1 was a bit more about the full team, and you saw a lot more everyone grouped up, big ults, big team wipes. That happened more often, I feel, whereas in Overwatch 2, it's a bit more split up repositioning. So therefore, characters that either don't have mobility themselves or have bad matchups, let's say now this is a bad matchup, but Rhine flats in the enemy's backline against two healers where they just heal each other forever. That's a bad matchup. Well, now as from the support category, you get to influence that and say, okay, buddy, you know, you did good, you made space, and that was the only fight, let's say, Flats could take. Like, I for whatever reason, I'm imagining this is on like the new control point. I feel this happens to me a lot. The Arctic Peninsula, the one that has like the bridge above the point, and then you fall down, you cap the point, and like there's like stairs to go up. Like this is like a Lifeweaver dream, basically, where my tank maybe goes and makes a play, but is then stranded out in an irrelevant position And now the more mobile team kind of wins, or like sometimes just like the right heroes are alive later in the fight. Well, anyway, but point being, Lifeweaver gets to reposition that and say, and he actually makes a lot of these characters like Cassidy and Reinhardt, maybe not at a high level, but like at like a casual level for sure, way more playable, because you go from the effectively, this is the way I was explain it, especially as a CS:GO player. Anyone who plays tech shooters understands this. Characters that go for one and done plays are now way more viable. And that's where the end game of Lifeweaver is going to be, where as a Reaper, for example, or a Cassidy doing your roll, Magnade, fan the hammer twice, right? And you're out of cooldowns and you're in the enemy's backline. You got your like 1.5 kills or whatever. Lifeweaver turns that into now, but now you're perfectly safe, way back on the high ground. And it's hard for me to express how strong that is. And Reaper's another example, right? Where maybe you can use Wraith to reload and tank a cooldown and stay in, but get saved, right? And that I don't know if is like utterly obnoxious or I think kind of fair, because Lifeweaver is so exploitable himself. Other than perfectly saving himself with the pedal, once you get on him at all, he just sort of falls over. And so he feels fair to me. He feels like a better design, in my opinion, for the support category. I love playing him because you don't actually get to shoot very often, I feel, as Lifeweaver, because he's so easy to get shot at. So any duel you try to take, you're just kind of going to lose.
During the fight, yeah.
Yeah, like if you peek your head out against anything, you just kind of lose. So while, yes, the Needler is better than healing, it's going to be hard to find opportunities, I think, to use the Needler a lot anyway.
You need an opening. If you get an opening, you can start snowballing the fight, particularly with Ram. Like, that's why I think Ram is going to be so good, because he has his block and ways to survive on his own, which will open the door for the Needler to be used more. But other than that, like if it's like a Rhine, like you're going to have to pump resources into him way more consistently. That's why Bap will be better with like Rhine, in my opinion.
The characters we think are good are going to change pretty dramatically around this character. And this is basically to my core premise of why I'm not as afraid of Brig, because keeping like a Zen alive or any high value, low mobility character like Cassidy, even though he got nerfed, it's like Cassidy's better in this version of the game, in my opinion. And or even Bastion potentially. These like high stat characters that lose all their power after a moment of whatever it is, whatever their cooldown is, to save them again. That cycle is going to be quite strong. And then I said earlier, but I think the biggest downside is just the deployable creep. Too many things on the map. Like when you get like Mei, Sim, Lifeweaver on both sides, that's like unwatchable Overwatch kind of, because it's just way too much repositioning and things getting like walls and trees and this and that. And so, yeah, I get a little worried about that affecting the gameplay.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely does add a lot of visual clutter, and I do worry about two giant trees on point, just kind of pulsing at each other. Well, there's like petals flying here, there, so there is that like visual clutter element. But I agree with Frito, where like obviously my background, I never played FPSs before Overwatch. It was MOBAs and kind of RTSs and stuff. So as a Dota player, like this is exactly the kind of like mechanics that I would have loved to see in Overwatch for a long time. I remember early on in Overwatch when like, I was still relatively new, I was like, it's Roadhog hook. It should be like a Roadhog hook for like an ally. Like, what about that? And this is kind of what we eventually got now, where it's like we got the life grip. And obviously there's a lot of concerns about griefing your teammates. So not even actively griefing them, but accidentally griefing them, right? Where it's like, because this happened to me a little bit when we were playing in the Pugs. I was playing Jug Queen and I had Fitzy as my Lifeweaver, not to put him on blast. But like a couple times I got yoinked because Fitzy was like, come fight the thing I'm fighting, right? Like I'd be fighting something else, and like I remember one moment where I'm like about to axe this guy and kill him, and if like I'll just get yoinked over, and I was like, oh, and Fitzy's like, sorry, there's a ball on me, and I needed help, and I was like, oh, okay. And I think that it will require like a community sentiment shift of like assuming good intent from like your teammate, right? Because like this is another very common MOBA thing where like this ability would not bat an eye in a MOBA game, because like you have so many abilities like this. Like again, as like a Dota player, there's like Vengeful Spirit where you can swap your position with a teammate's position. So like if you could be inting and you could potentially swap your teammate into the inting position and they die, you get away. So I'm not personally too worried about like, well, I'm gonna get dragged around. I guess the one solution I would have is like, people were like, this should be a confirm to accept option. I think they could do the opposite. You could do a press to break the life grip option if you wanted to. Like, so when you get
Well,
life
movement
grip,
does.
Yeah.
Movement
yeah, I
abilities
know,
already
but what
do
if you
that,
don't
though.
have a movement? Yeah, but what if you don't have a movement, right? So like, if you could just, they could be like a press F to break the life grip option, right? Like if you feel like you're being pulled and you really don't want to.
Interact, maybe?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
just the interact key would break it. Yeah, that's actually way better than F to accept. That's way better.
Didn't they say you're allowed to use movement abilities during it? So maybe you can like blink
Yes.
out
Yeah,
of
yeah,
it.
you are.
Yeah,
But what
you
I'm
can.
saying is not
Except,
every character.
what if you're
could
Ryan with no
just do
charge?
that.
What happens if you start getting pulled and you charge out of it? Like the ultimate. No, I'm not
No, let me
going.
go.
No,
Let
don't
me
take
go.
me. Wait, what happens if you
right
get? What
now.
happens if you get pulled while you're charging? Wait a minute.
You do get pulled back.
Oh, that's man.
At the yeah, I think the interact one is kind of the solution here, in my opinion. Because that's a
Yeah.
button nobody presses unless they want to, do
Yeah,
that
unless
type
you're
of
trying to
thing.
do something
Unless
specific.
you have some wacky keybinds, in which case you need to get help anyway. Because if you're using that F key, like no. That's unless that's your emote key. That's respectable. I'm doing push up, guys. By the way,
F is
to
actually
go
my
off
melee.
topic,
Just saying. Yeah, it is.
Wow.
people from the Northeast, man. What are you gonna do with them? Honestly, like,
I have an
forgot the briefing
explanation if you
point.
want to hear it. I can explain.
Oh, well, yeah. Where's this gonna go? Let's hear it.
Because I was
All
a
right.
console gamer and I swapped over, I used to really have a bad tendency to put a bunch of buttons on my mouse because it was way easier to have a bunch of mouse buttons. But then I realized over time that I was kind of handicapping myself doing that. But one thing I never broke is that reload is on my mouse. So R is my interact and F is my melee.
There's no way you play FPS games.
Let's just continue. Let's just
Overwatch
skip
was my
over this.
Overwatch was my
Just-
first PC FPS. You gotta remember.
Wait, what's
Yeah,
the
that's true.
date today? Oh, it's Flats. You got the dates wrong. Today's April 7th, not the 1st. Get it together. Jeez
So,
Louise.
yeah, I don't know what he's thinking. I don't know who let him
never
cook.
heard that. Oh, no.
To
Oh,
Lifeweaver,
God.
yeah, I think he's really fun. I think it's fun as well that he's that kind of support that doesn't necessarily, he's not going to 1v5 people. But I think there's a lot of like, I think the pull is perhaps the most visceral any support player will ever get, of feeling like, yeah, man, I popped off. Like I really saved my teammate without like killing 5 people. Everybody, like when you pull someone out of danger, like everybody knows it, which also is a downside. Was like when you fuck up, everyone knows it. But when you're like, there's someone who's like low HP and you pull them back,
Appreciate it.
everyone in the lobby is like, God damn it, that Lifeweaver just saved him. And I feel like it's much more fair than a Suzu, where again, Suzu's impact is just, the high end of it is so much higher, where it's like fucking 5 people intangible. It has like accidental effects, right? Where it's like you intangible someone who didn't mean to get like,
You can get
you didn't-
kills with it, unironically.
you can get
Like,
kills with, I know,
You
I
got,
died
you got
to it.
that.
I got fucking bonked off to it while I was Junker Queen ulting, so I know what that fucking feels like. So I feel like it's very controlled. I feel like it has that like early Overwatch 1 element of like, it's a single target, it's 20 seconds. Like it's very controlled what its impact is. So like I think it'd be a lot of fun. I think support players who, again, they've kind of said at length that they wanted this to be a support who doesn't need to aim. So I think that like a lot of players who aren't mechanically gifted will look at this and be like, yes, this is a character I can still control the fight with without necessarily like completely distorting the entire nature of it, or without like having to go frag out for myself. So
I forgot the griefing component in my little spiel about Lifeweaver. Can I comment on that? I know Flats
go
probably
for
is
it.
waiting to go as well more. But so I feel like there's a lot of people who haven't played the character at all or much that are really worried about griefing. For me, with Lifeweaver, I get more frustrated when they don't know how to set something up, basically, where you're not really, the bigger problem to me usually is like they don't manipulate the fight in a positive way. They just sort of like, typically this is like a DPS player. Like they can go on Ana and just hit shots and just sit in the back line. But in order to really use this character, you've got to manipulate the fight. And even a bad life grip, as long as it doesn't send you off the map, because you're invulnerable, it doesn't tilt me anyway. The characters that it will tilt, and it's funny that they say like, well, you can save your Genji, but as SV pointed out, I think the characters that you never want to life grip, or even probably even play Lifeweaver with, are Junker Queen and Genji, because in my opinion, because those are characters that kind of need to keep hitting their abilities and want to snowball the fight, right? Like if you whiff your axe as Queen, you're like not a character. That's all her power. So if you grip the axe pretty much at any point and she doesn't land that, it's like you as the queen are like, man, I wish you just let me die because like or at least try, right? Like you're better to throw something at her that helps her stay in the fight because she wants to keep getting axe. Whereas and then Genji as well wants dash resets behind them. And there's certain characters I feel that if you life grip them away from the fight so much, they're just all of a sudden useless. And I think like Brig kind of feels like one of them. Like in theory, she gets Inspire, you pull her back, now she's safe, but it's like she kind of just wants to maintain the position she's in and not really vacate it. Whereas I think there's like better options that are more one and done style that like get a full reset off the grip. So anyway, like because you're invulnerable, it's like sort of just like a on most characters, other than those specific ones to me.
Plus, it's one character every 20 seconds, so like the impact of like getting griefed is like so unlikely. I think especially when you get to people who are competent, like you're
more likely is fighting out of sync. I sorry to interrupt. It's just like this is my
you make a good point,
my point about this for the I think this is a net positive for fighting in sync for the general player base of the game. So I spoke about it in terms of like the late fight repositioning benefit, but more often than not, you're quote losing agency in ranked at the 99%. Again, we're not all playing with flats, okay? Because our tank goes in too deep, right? Like I had a game with a Doomfist one trick who's always out of voice. I recognize this guy. I've played with him many times, avoid him every time, and he just goes in and uses his cooldowns alone, and sometimes that works. That's the thing. Sometimes you get your punch, you get your gauntlet, and then you kill the whole team, and you're like, oh, I'm amazing. But other times, they counter you, and then your team just doesn't have a tank the entire game. That happens, right? And supports have no way to deal with that until now, where they say, well, oh, good job, Doomfist. Like, now you're forced to reset with me. So on some cases, like SV's example with Queen, maybe that's like I'm not a character now. But in other cases, it like stabilizes the game. And I feel it's a net benefit to the trolling.
I think there's... Yeah. You first.
I was just gonna say, like, it's a character that has certain things that it's good with, certain things that it's not, and like it allows for more diversity of picks that like and comps that can synergize well together. That's all. You got.
So I kind of agree with you, Frito. I know that they put out a tweet to like Stylosis tweet that like they made like the pull off the map harder. I'm pretty sure when I recorded mine, it was after the patch, so it's still like very doable on certain maps, like well. But that's not actually what I'm more afraid of for like the 99%. The 99%, I read more comments than anything about this, and I don't read like TikTok comments that often, but the few times I have, it's like there's people, the psychological aspect of people like probably think that someone's trolling them. So like if they go into a fight and they're trying to go in and somebody mistimes a pull or thinks they're in trouble and pulls them out, and they're not actively griefing, they were trying to be helpful, that person on the opposite side goes, wow, this guy's trolling my game, playing this stupid character, pulling me out of the fight, I'm throwing this game, right? Like, I have read so many comments of people say that if somebody pulls me out of a fight, I'm throwing. Like I can't even tell you. It's all, if you go to any Lifeweaver TikToks right now, it's always the #1 most liked comment without fail across the board. I bet if I went to my YouTube stuff and went down a little bit, I bet I could find one. I bet I could find bunches. So not only are we the griefing of, jumping off the map and pulling them with you, but I wonder how many people, one, will just think that someone's griefing them, or two, assume that they're just awful and that they're griefing them not on purpose, but because they suck. So why am I going to play with this person? Because they're literally making my experience. And so then they actively go off on their own and start trolling. Because that's a second part of the aspect. We can all talk about the Lifeweaver trolling people, but what about the opposite side? That person who gets pulled away and then they get pissed and they're like, nah, this, I'm out. Like, I think there's so many aspects. And you're right, to that 99% though, they don't have the perfect world we do. Of course, as a streamer, you're gonna have a very different time. Like, I'll probably get pulled off the map many, many times. But like the average GM player or top 500 player, probably not. They'll probably have really good coordination. They'll have good synergies. They'll set up plays. They'll try to make some things work. Not all the time, but it will have a much better chance than the gold players. But I think it's also a much better chance that the gold players get pulled out of a fight on Reinhardt when it looks like they were going to get a kill and they got yoinked that kill away from them, that they explode and go, what the f***? Why did you pull me out, you and it just got going
I'm
crazy.
really scared.
Like, I actually think that side of the psychological aspect is going to be just as impactful as the Instalock Lifeweaver and jumping off the map. I think they're going to be just as prominent, both of them.
Real.com/true. Yeah.
I think that's true, but also fuck those people. Like I.
Yeah,
But that's
but
the
like-
99% though.
But here's
I
the
know-
thing.
I know
Here's
people-
the thing. That's
go ahead,
realistic
Sam.
though. That's realistic.
It is realistic.
though.
It is realistic, but I do think we have to shift our approach. Like
That's why I don't talk about it.
we can't have nice things, right? Like we're gonna have to add like fun things in the game. Okay, sometimes that can be griefed, but like.
But there
get good,
has to be
adapt to it.
levels,
To be fair,
though.
again,
you have to always be
there's
careful
levels
about
to
that.
it.
You have to
Because,
always be
again,
careful about that.
This is the first time your own teammate, and I think to be fair as well, if you add the ability to break it on interact, it's a different story. But right now, that comes alive. Without that ability, it is not
Yes.
going to go well. It is just not going to
Again,
go
yeah,
well.
I think the best solution is just press button to break it. Like, because I think eventually you get used to that. Like, oh shit, I'm about to get Lifeweaver.
You're
You
not
can react
controlling your
with
own
it.
game, and there's nothing you can do
Yes.
about it. Like
Yes.
that's like if you're getting hog cooked, at least that's the enemy. You can shoot them. Like you can use your ability. You can't use your abilities on your teammate, right? So I get they just have to be interactable, and I think that solves a lot of the problems with it.
But then even then,
Yeah.
though, right? Like,
Yeah.
so
but
what you're
that's-
saying, right? Like, you know what I'm going to say probably is if you're someone who can deny the Lifeweaver pull, what happens in those games where you have the idiot Silver Reinhardt player who only plays, he's a Silver always, his teammate's terrible, he's got TikTok Moiras, can't win a game because his teammates are terrible. That is the
It's better-
99%
It's
of
better
people.
though. It's
like-
better that there's at least the interaction. Because
What?
if he's breaking it, then he's just trolling.
Well,
right? And
exactly,
that's at
but
least in his-
as
that's
the
at least in his
Lifeweaver player,
control.
though, as the Lifeweaver player, you're playing a character who half your kit is literally useless because that player will not accept you to be able to play the game. So then Lifeweaver feels like shit. So it's
Well, then
like,
you could use it
Well,
on your
no,
other
but
teammates.
it's no. But how's that any different to like if you're a Kiriko player and like or like you're a SBAP player and you emo the Ryan, just walks out of it.
that's
like,
so
you-
much
you-
different though. Like Suzu,
I don't
you
know.
interact with them. If you're talking about Baptiste, yeah, they can walk out of it. Like, of course they
It's
can
not
walk
perfect,
out of
but
it.
that's the best. That's
That
the
is
best you
way
can do.
different though. That is
It's
100%
the
different.
best you can do.
It is the best you can
Yeah,
do
but
for
what
sure.
I'm saying
But
is, what I'm saying is, if that Ryan is trolling, he's gonna troll your. He's gonna.
but it's
like,
not
int
trolling.
your
He's
game
not
regardless.
intentionally trolling. He just sucks. He just
He's gonna
sucks.
int your game regardless. Yeah, he's gonna int regardless. So whether you're pulling
He's
him
not
or not, like
inting,
that's,
though. He's not
Class,
inting
can
it.
you stop being rank elitist?
But that's if we want to talk about the 99%, that's the 99%. That's what people are going to deal with on a day-to-day basis. They're going to have their teammates that go too far, and that's people outside of our content bubble. If you watch Twitch streams, you are a hardcore Overwatch fan. That's fact. Like if you watch if you watch YouTube videos, you're probably on the more hardcore side. Most casual players don't watch any content, so they're not.
Yeah,
you're not
but-
even in our realm.
But here's what I'm saying. Like, so I've been doing again. I keep doing these hero learning journeys. I just been climbing on Lucio. Started in gold, and the count is now Master 5. People fucking literally calling me the N-word AFKing my games because I pick Lucio. So like, I get what you're
Right.
saying about what Lifeweaver is doing is the most extreme example of potentially influencing your team. But like the number of games I get people just tossing the game because they don't like the hero I picked anyways,
It's-
already on the existing character. It's
This is
already
Overwatch.
there.
But that's gonna get
Yeah,
worse.
it's already there. No, it can't get much worse.
same.
He's already tossing the
It will
game.
100%
much
get
more-
worse.
Nah, I think it's overblown. I think people are like overselling the like. I think we're almost in danger of creating the monster we're worried about, where we're like, oh man, it's gonna be
I
so
agree.
bad to get pulled. Where it's gonna be so bad. It's just one pull every 20 seconds on one character in your team that maybe pulls you out of position from a kill you might have gotten. Other times makes you invulnerable, so you definitely can't die.
Yes.
So like,
Yes, I
like,
agree.
At worst, you maybe don't get a kill you were about to get, or maybe occasionally, yeah, you'll remember the one time you're about to pop off and the Lifeweaver pulled you off from your pop off moment.
But you're
but,
saying
like,
as a rational
come on.
GM player, not a gold player who just queued
no,
up the
I'm
game.
telling you, I'm in these gold lobbies, and the guy, flats. I was on Lijiang Tower Control Center. We're running
Yeah.
Orisa, and the guy's flaming me for playing Lucio.
I
He
know,
says
they're
Lucio
dumb.
is a bad pick on Control Center with Orisa May.
I'm
and
not
he's saying
saying
I
they're
should go
smart,
Mercy.
dude.
No, but what I'm saying is they will toss the game anyways because they're fucking.
They don't know
gold.
That's
anything
gonna get
anyway.
tuned
Just
up
GG
to
go next.
11.
You just GG go next anyways because that guy would toss your game no matter what. Like it's not a fundamental difference of experience is what I'm saying. It's maybe a more extreme visceral example, but the experience is the same. That guy's a moron who will int your game regardless.
My opinion is you almost never want to break it anyway. Like why do you want to break an immortality ability. Like generally like that. So I also think like the visuals of this isn't as disorienting as you might imagine. It almost feels like you're being like hugged by the thing, and you just sort of like float back. It's not disorienting at all, even when it's really long distances. Like the range of it is absolutely insane. So 9 times out of 10, I feel you're gonna be like, all right, it's fine. And we already described the really tilting examples where there are horrible targets for it, but for the most part, it's like not dying is just not, I don't know. I don't know. Most of the time, the tanks are complaining that they didn't get healed enough, right? So at least allowing them to not die, I feel they care more about dying than they do about not dying and being repositioned. I think it's a bit of a phantom, as SV said. Like we're creating it off of an imaginary scenario.
Yeah, I guess
I
we'll find out.
I think we could track this. My standpoint is it'll only improve all the things we're worried about. It's only better than worse.
Here's what we'll do. I'll go undercover in gold.
Start trolling people with life grip. Just
Well, I mean, I'll only use it in the right situations, right? Because I feel like I'll be able to tell. And then I'm going to record all the reactions of the gold tanks and see how mad they get. If they get mad, then
I will
politely explain to
literally
them.
be doing that myself, actually, because I'm going to be doing like 7 days of Lifeweaver. So I'll report back after playing Lifeweaver for a week to see how people respond to me pulling them. And I mean, the thing is, though, this is what I'm saying is like I'm already getting called racial slurs for playing Lucio. So it's like, how much worse could it get if I pull a guy and he thinks I pulled him wrong, but I know I pulled him right. So like, I don't give a shit, you know?
Listen, when you flame people like that back, they don't know what to do. You just got to hit them harder.
I remember a really good clip of Sam going crazy on someone in Overwatch 1. I was losing it.
No, I'm telling you, with people like that, they don't expect a response because they're trying to be edgy. If you hit them with some game packs and like they just don't know how to respond, but with people like that, you just gotta match their energy and just go a little bit. Well, that's what I do. Doesn't always work.